Welcome to the Killer Innovation Show, the longest continuously produced podcast in history. Each week, Phil McKinney brings you the insights and strategies to amplify your creativity and innovation skills. Here's your host, Phil McKinney.
Welcome to this week's show. One question that I've gotten recently was about completing projects, the challenge of getting an innovation all the way through and delivering, meaning shipping, having its impact, being deployed, being used. And the challenge being that procrastination, avoiding completing the tasks necessary for the innovation to actually ship. And when I got asked the question, I actually laughed because procrastination is one of those things I struggle with. I am easily distracted. Things happening around me, my beep chirp from my phone, my grandkids running around, or my wife asking me to a question. I can easily get off into the weeds, and before I know it, I've lost 1, 2, 3, 4 hours that I had planned on spending working on a project. So it's something that we all struggle with. Procrastination is one of the biggest barriers to successful innovation. Innovators, for some reason, we just tend to suffer from this challenge of procrastination. And there's a lot of reasons for that. So that's what we're going to cover in today's show. I'm going to share with you what I call the Procrastinator's Guide for Innovators. There's a lot of discussions on procrastination, but I think as in the innovation space, there's some unique characteristics that you have to take into mind. And again, I think procrastinators as a whole, you'll find more innovators suffer from procrastination, severe procrastination, ultimately in the delivery of the program that you're trying to work on. So we're going to talk about that today. But before we hop into this week's episode, get that favor to ask, follow, like, and share. Follow us on social media, like this episode, share it, and then share it with others. Post the link, tell other people about it, post a comment, post some feedback. We'd love to hear from you. And with that, let's hop in to this week's episode. Procrastination is the thief of time, as the saying goes. But it's also much more than that. Procrastination is a thief of potential, a thief of happiness, and it can be a thief for your success. In short, procrastination is it's a thief of everything that is good in life. And for innovators, procrastination can be even a bigger problem. After all, innovation requires that you have to take risks. You got to get out of your comfort zone. And getting out of that comfort zone means you're doing things you're not familiar with, you haven't tried before, and we're hesitant. And that is why we procrastinate. But there is hope. Even for the most die-hard procrastinators, and trust me, I am one of those. It is possible to overcome this destructive habit. And so today I'm going to talk about giving you a guide through the hard lessons learned over my career of how do you deal with procrastination as an innovator. Innovators don't realize that they're procrastinating because they feel like they're making lots of progress by starting lots of things. As innovators, we do not lack for lots of ideas. They may feel like we're getting a lot done, but we never complete them. We start a lot of things, but how many projects do you actually complete? Do you actually launch that innovation? Do you actually bring it to market? This is one of the most insidious forms of procrastination because it's so easy to convince ourselves that we're being productive when we're really not. One test is to take a look at your portfolio. It can be discouraging to look at your personal portfolio of innovations that you have created and realize that your list of projects started is a long, long list, while the list of innovations that you've actually launched are fairly small. Most innovators have not launched most of what they've started. In the innovation space, you will get your next position or project based on your portfolio, not your resume. And if your portfolio is thin of the innovations that you've actually launched, then you will not be taken seriously as an innovator. So, what are some of the examples in the innovation portfolio? Well, if you're interested in taking a look at a small sample of a portfolio, you can hop over and look at my portfolio, which is hosted over at techtrend.com/portfolio. Or you can just go to techtrend.com and click on the menu up at the top. Now, note, TechTrend is an innovation agency I launched back in 1996. I am not involved in the day-to-day, but still use some of their projects as one of my creative outlets. And you'll see this in the portfolio over at TechTrend. This is especially for the work I'm involved in, which is around designing and building immersive spaces. My original major was architecture. So you'll see portfolios over there for the Museum New Media Gallery in Washington, D.C. that I designed, and the design for the lobby of the Edelman headquarters in New York City, as just two examples. Those are projects that completed, launched, and live. And that is what a portfolio is. It's not a portfolio of ideas. It needs to be a portfolio of innovations that you've delivered. And look, we all struggle with procrastination. Getting over that and trying to drive in a way that allows you to actually deliver helps build out your portfolio, which means you will get more projects, you will have more career opportunities with a robust innovation portfolio. Now, the question I get a lot is there a tool or framework to help keep you on track, to avoid getting distracted? Now, as I've shared many times in the past, the FIRE Innovation Framework is a great way to avoid the trap of starting but never completing. Now, FIRE stands for focus, ideation, ranking, and execution. I've talked about it hundreds of times over the 18 years of the show. So you can go back and find previous episodes that talk specifically about the FIRE framework. The key to the FIRE framework is to move from stage to stage until you've launched your innovation. Now, of all the stages, the execution stage is by far the one that most people procrastinate on the most. This is where the rubber meets the road. It's where you have to actually take your idea and make it real. It's also where things get really messy and really, really hard. But that's no excuse for avoiding it. Remember, and I've said this quote 1,000 times, I'm now going to say it for 1,001 times, ideas without execution are a hobby. And as innovators, we are not in the hobby business. Now, it's easy to procrastinate when we're not looking forward to a task, and execution is hard, and we're doing tasks we may have never done before. Our brain convinces us it's better to do something else, even if that something else is less important. Another reason is that we avoid things that are difficult or challenging. It's natural to want to stick with the things we're good at and shy away from the things that seem hard. Why? As innovators, we tend to compare our ideas to others, and we don't want to start anything or work on anything until we are sure we know how to make it perfect. And to be perfect, we are convinced that we have to do every task, including every step of execution, perfectly. But the thing is, nothing is ever perfect. Perfectionism is one of the biggest roadblocks to creative output. It's the fear of not being good enough or not living up to our own high standards. And it can keep us from starting new projects or completing them once we do start. But what if we give ourselves permission to create something that was less than perfect? What if we allowed ourselves to experiment and make mistakes? I think you'd be surprised at how much you can accomplish with that. And I think you might even have some fun along the way. When I started this podcast back in 2005, the early episodes were pretty crappy. The first draft of my book was horrible. It was crappy. As Leo says, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Let me share with you some of the hard lessons I've learned about procrastination when it comes to innovation and creativity. I had to overcome my own tendency to procrastinate and my own tendency for perfectionism, two of the biggest roadblocks to my career. Based on my experience as an innovator and seeing others struggle and fail, I've developed the following guide to assist you in being successful in innovation projects. First up, focus on one innovation. It's easy to get distracted with lots of creative ideas and bring none of them to fruition. When you're trying to execute, focus on a specific idea, specific project, and see it through to completion. Focus on one that you're going to drive through execution. Don't try to do execution on 5 projects because you'll never get them done. The one benefit that I was surprised that I learned through that lesson learned was that by focusing on one idea, it actually improved my overall innovation productivity. Now, why is that? Well, by completing an innovation project, you open up capacity to work on even more innovations. I know, it's counterintuitive, but clearing out the backlog of just this long list of tasks that never get done when you actually complete a project and it moves on, that frees up the capacity to do more work. So, focus on one innovation. Second one up, set a deadline. This is critical. If you don't have a deadline, it's too easy to keep pushing it off and rationalizing and coming up with excuses. Setting a deadline is one of the best ways to force yourself to focus and get the job done. But it's not just about giving yourself a date to launch. It's also about setting intermediate deadlines for each task along the way. What are you going to do by this Friday? What are you going to have done by the end of the month? What are you going to have done by the end of the quarter? What are you going to have done when the project is completed? When I launched my podcast, I set a deadline of March 1st to have the first episode live. And then I set weekly deadlines for each task that needed to be completed in order to meet the goal. The podcast launched on March 5th, 2005. The same was true in writing my book. My publisher set my deadline. The deadline was June 1st to have the first draft completed, even though it was a pretty crappy draft. I then set daily and weekly deadlines for each task that I needed to be completed in order to meet that goal. I knew I had to be done by June 1st, and I backed into all the steps I could identify and set myself deadlines. I turned in my manuscript on June 8th, 2011. Now, the difference between a dream of launching a podcast, a dream of writing and publishing a book with a major publisher, the difference between a dream and a goal is having the deadline. And that's a quote from Harvey Mackay. Third up is find an accountability partner. This is someone who will help you stay on track and be accountable to your deadline. It's important to find someone who's supportive, but who also gives you honest feedback and kick your fanny when you need it. One way to find an accountability partner is to ask friends or colleagues if they know of anyone who would be interested in helping you stay on track. I would actually suggest you not use a spouse or a close family member. You need somebody from outside, maybe a longtime friend, somebody you really, really trust and that you really listen to. You may also want to look for online forums and groups. There are entire groups that will act as accountability partners for a major project that you've identified as important. These accountability groups will step in and play that role. Next, break down your project into smaller steps. Chunk it down, as they say. When you're looking at the big picture, it can be overwhelming. You don't even know where to start. But if you break it down into smaller steps, it will seem much more manageable. And each time you complete a step, you'll get a sense of accomplishment and will motivate you just to keep going. You've got that step, go on to the next step, and pretty soon the project is done. One approach specifically to innovation projects, and particularly when you're trying to manage delivering an innovation on a team, is consider using an agile innovation process that breaks down the project into short, iterative cycles. We've covered agile innovation on the December 7th podcast, and I'll have a link in the show notes if you want to go back and find that. Next is focus on your why. It's easy to lose sight as to why you're doing something when the going gets tough. But if you can keep your why in mind, it will help you push through those really hard, those really difficult times. But what do I mean by your why? Your why is the reason you're doing this. Why you're doing this project. Are you excited about this idea? Why you're working on this particular thing versus something else. It's what inspires you and helps you to push through. Focus and stay focused. Remind yourself every day of the why. Next, celebrate your wins. Make sure to celebrate each accomplishment, no matter how small. This helps you get focused and keeps your motivation high. When I was writing my book, I held myself accountable to only allowing myself to only purchase a new tech gadget if I completed a major milestone. And so as I worked through the book, I didn't buy myself the new phone or the new gadget or the new thing or the hot thing in the marketplace. I only did that after I completed a major task or a major milestone. I've talked to other, particularly book authors, who wanted to buy a particular car, and they held off until the book was on the bookshelf in the store. That's when they allowed themselves to go buy a new car or a new piece of gadget or take a long vacation. When it comes to innovation, it's important to remember that Rome was not built in a day. And you won't see success on your first try. Not all projects launch successfully. It takes hard work, focus, and most importantly, determination, or as one of my coworkers calls it, grit. Innovation grit. But if you follow the steps outlined, you'll be well on your way to having a much higher level of success than you've had in the past. So don't give up and keep pushing forward. The rewards will be worth it. Trust me. The feeling you get when it's launched, the feeling I got when my book was on the shelf, the feeling I got when a product that I developed was on the retail shelf at major stores. I could walk in and point to it. That exhilaration from innovation, that ship, is second to none. The rewards will be worth it. But you have to push back on this procrastination. So here's an interesting question for you. Do you have any tips for overcoming procrastination that have worked for you? Share them. Share them in the comments so that others in the community can also learn from your experience. So do you suffer from procrastination? I can tell you over my 40-year career, I have struggled with this repeatedly. But hopefully you found the list of things that I attempt to do, try to keep myself on track, helpful for you. What I'd most be interested in hearing is if you have any tips on how you deal with your own procrastination. How do you deal with it, and how can you share that? Put it in the comment note section here below, and share it with others in the community. Also, don't forget about checking out your portfolio. If you don't have your portfolio put together, now is a good time to start collecting up the portfolio of all of your innovation projects. And again, you can check out just a small subset of my portfolio over at techtrend, techtrend.com. You can check the portfolio out there. If you've got your portfolio online and you want to share it with the community, put it in the comments section. Just put a URL link in your comments and let other people go check out your portfolio and see what kind of work you're working on. And you never know, it might lead to some interesting project work that you can take on. Most importantly is you need a portfolio. Innovation projects are driven by portfolio, not by resume, not by degrees or colleges you went to. It is about the work output. It's like any other creative job, whether that be as an artist or as an architect. It is about your portfolio, the work that you have done, that you've delivered. So work on your portfolio, and maybe in an upcoming episode or show, we'll talk maybe in more detail specifically about portfolios. But with that, I want to thank you again for taking time out of this week to spend time with me here. We are still on the road, and we'll be on the road for about another month or so, but we are still staying focused on producing new shows and new content. But what you will see is maybe some experimentation on formats and content about what we cover in the show. If you have ideas, feedback, suggestions, love to hear from it. You can send me an email at phil@killerinnovations.com. Would love to hear your thoughts, hear your feedback. And with that, we'll talk to you next week. Have a great week and go out there and change the world. Bye-bye.
Podcasting nonstop since 2005, this has been the Killer Innovation Show on the Innovators Network.